Hi folks, it's Rich here. If you don't know me, my name's Richard. Rich, by name, not by anything else. And I'm in sales. I'm a proud member of the Rockwool family. We're in the insulation world, non-combustible things that don't burn. And I spend most of my time with architects in the main, working on building design and specifying non-combustible materials. But I also talk to main contractors and other people in the construction industry. Now, one of the things that's always struck me with sales, I've been in sales for a long time now, I have 15, 18 years, is it's very easy to get overwhelmed with your workload. It's very easy to get overwhelmed with your KPIs that you're given. And it's very easy to get stressed out. And the thing with kind of work stress is they can't not but spill into your home life. They just do, because you're thinking about it all the time. You're behind, you're trying to catch up perhaps. Things aren't working out quite as well as you'd like to be. You feel like you've been pulled from pillar to post. And that can affect relationships with people around you. So it's not just about, oh, work's stressing me out, and then, you know, when it comes to 5:30 or whatever time it is you might finish, stop, and then you're okay. It just stays with you and builds up anxiety. And what I've been doing now for many years to try and combat that is what I call minimums. I'm going to explain what these are and what they'll do for you if you can be disciplined enough to stick to your minimums. Even if you're at 80% sticking to your minimums, you'll get all of your tasks done that you need to get done, particularly focusing on your KPIs and things that you're measured by. And then the knock-on effect of that is you're far more likely to achieve your targets, measures, KPIs, for one. It will massively reduce the amount of stress that you might be feeling and make you feel much more organised. And then so all of those things mean that when you get to the end of each day and end of each week as well, you get a real good sense of achievement because you've effectively ticked things off, which is always nice. Tick, tick, I've done this, you know, get on your actions list. But also you'll be achieving the things that you want to. So I've just written a few things down here on paper, but which I'm going to go through with you, and hopefully you'll find this useful. Please ask me some questions in the comments box if you need to. So the first thing to say is this: obviously you don't have to be a salesperson like me, you can apply this to anything really, but we're going to do it in the context of me and my sales position. So the first thing that I needed to do is just kind of demystify what my role is, because it's very easy. I mean, I'm very much a details person and I try and help everybody all the time as well. So I was getting really pulled into things that weren't my immediate remit and they were making it harder. So I did this. This is just a small little flowchart. What actually is my job? Let's just break it right down to the basics. What is my job? Okay. So on the what is my job, so for me, I'm making it simple. I'm working on big commercial projects. So the first thing, find a project, and we've got a resource for that. Make the phone calls to the architect or whoever's involved on that project. And my side arrow here to the word minimums, because I'll talk about that in a moment, minimum numbers of calls. Once I've made the call, that means I get a meeting. And from that meeting, apart from hopefully getting on the way to specifying something, I'm organising a CPD, so I do presentations as well. And part of making that meeting also less stressful is making sure I've got the right amount of knowledge to answer most of the questions when I'm there. And knowledge means learning time, and that's something else that you need to build into your working week if need be. If you've got enough knowledge from learning in that meeting, it will take away the stress and anxiety of that meeting. And then from your meeting, the next bit for me is the follow-up calls on it. And then there are some other activities that I have to do with that. I have to update our CRM system at work. So it's, you know, sort of a database of what the meeting was. Or might have to get some calculations and write a specification, do some other things. And then from the follow-up becomes the chase-ups. And from that, it might be to get a meeting with someone else involved in that project. So say I met the architect and now I need to have a meeting with the main contractor. So to do that, maybe another architect's meeting, or maybe put in the inquiry to one of my colleagues who does something else within the business. So this very basic little sort of flow chart thing I did here, that just tells me what my job is in basic terms. So when I see that, I've got this stuck on the wall actually. When I see that, that just makes me feel, okay, look, it's just taking all the grief out of it. That's all you've got to do. So the next thing to do, and this is the real key thing and the point of this video, is your minimums. Now, your minimums are just as they suggest. To do your to do your job well, what the minimum number of things you need to do, the minimum types of activities you need to do to achieve your goals. Now, it's very easy, especially if you have got a bit behind or you've had a really busy week, you've got an inbox full of stuff and it's which one shall I do next, and I need to do all these calls. Or you might, if you're working from home one day, every day at the moment, if you're working from home one day, you might suddenly give yourself an insurmountable number of tasks to try and catch up, and then that's not rewarding at all because you don't achieve them all, and it just adds more stress, frankly. So let's take a typical week, say for me when we're out and about on the road. I might want to do 2 or 3 physical visits a day at architects' practices and seeing my customer base. So that's just a given. But to get those 2 or 3 a day, some of those calls will come in, so it'll be reactive. But I'd also need to make prospecting calls out to people on particular projects I want to be involved with. So I've put on my little list here to make 5 proactive calls per day. That's only 5. And so by the end of the week, that's 25 prospecting calls. Now, these are minimums, remember. So the reality is, when you have your working from home day as well, you'll probably do more than that. Another thing that's really key to making the phone calling, the prospecting side of things work, is if you are like me, an out on the road salesperson, and you turn up to your appointment early, as you should anyway, and just make 1 extra phone call before you go in. So during the space of that day, that is just 1 more call, and it makes you feel good before you go in. You're like, yeah, I've done another tick, I've been proactive, I've made another phone call, I've already pre-prepped for what my meeting is going to be, so I haven't got to worry about why am I here, and that will help you. So you must decide what the minimum realistic number of phone calls is you can make per day. And once you've done that as well, the next step is to look at your calendar. If you use Outlook, say, is put that bit of time into the calendar. Now, it might be that day something happens and someone takes that time and you can't do it specifically when you said, but programming it in gives you that first step. I've put this time aside specifically to do this on my minimums, and put it as a reoccurring thing every week. Move it if you need to, but I'll come on to moving things as well. The next thing that you might want to do, I've got lots of ongoing projects and they all require follow-up calls of different sorts. So rather than say, oh, do you know what, on Thursday I'm going to do 30 follow-up calls, but that's just not realistic. I've, in my diary, 3 follow-up calls a day. That's all. So I've got 5 prospecting calls and 3 follow-up calls. So by the end of the week, that'll be 15 follow-up calls as a minimum. But I know by doing these minimums, these should get me to where I need to be. And then, of course, I've got possibilities of doing more if I make the time. To help you with those calls, you also need to put a little bit of time aside to be proactive in terms of the research prospecting calls. So we use a bit of kit called Glenigan where we find different projects. So a little bit of time each week for Glenigan, and a little bit of time each week as well, and each day, making sure that you know who those calls are going to be to. Because what you don't really want to do is get around to, right, I've got to make 5 prospecting calls. Well, where am I going to make those calls? You need to put the research in first. So I've put myself down here 2 hours a week, proactive project finding research, which is not a lot, is it? 2 hours a week is nothing. There's also a couple of sort of special side projects I'm working on with a team at work, and I've programmed in my working week, again, 2 hours for those things to be done specifically. And again, I've blocked that out on my Outlook calendar. I've got a recap on this in a minute, so don't worry. And then emails. Each day, I want my inbox to be 10 emails or below. Now, that sounds quite scary when I get probably 20 or 30 easily every day. But ones that you haven't dealt with, they then go into their folder and the activity is added to your actions list, which I'll talk about in a moment. So for me, as an example, here at the top, number of physical calls a week, then minimum number of telephone calls for new projects, number of telephone calls to chase up existing projects, a bit of time to do my research, and a bit of time on special projects if you have them, and with regards to emails being below 10 each day, in my calendar every day at 4:30 until 5, I've blocked out half an hour of time where I go through my inbox, and if I haven't managed to keep it down during the space of the day, I look through them all. If it takes a bit longer than that, then so be it. But again, I'll put half an hour down. So then I can move things to my actions list and tidy up my email inbox. So again, just takes that kind of stress away. You take it, instead of like, oh, I know what that email's for, what is that one for? It's on a list, you know what it is, so you can move it. Now you'll notice I've been calling this actions list, not a task list. Task list, taskmaster, whip, doesn't sound very positive to me. Actions, yay, let's get some actions. I think it's a much more positive term, so I call them actions. Now talking of actions list also gets broken down. So you see here under actions list, big, week commencing, as you can read at the bottom, daily, populate calendar. So on my big actions list, which is my umbrella, those are big ticket items, if you like, things that I'm involved with, things that I need to do, good to-dos and nice to-dos, helpful to-dos, as well as the things I actually have to do. So it's a big list. And then each week before the week starts, and I'll do this on a Friday evening typically, so that I have the weekend off, and I'll talk about that in a second. I do what my next week's week commencing goals are. So say my big list is the one with, like an overview of all of the things that I'm doing. The weekly one there'll probably be 4 or 5 big things on there that I know I have to do for that week. And it's just a little visual reminder. Now, I put my actions list is on Excel. So I'm just using it like you would with Word really, but it's just because it's got all the grid lines and makes it easy. So on the left-hand side of my page, I've got like my big list. Then I'll write some notes. And then the next one along the next heading is my week commencing goals. And then under that, there's 4 or 5. And then the really important one, well, they're all important, but then is the daily one. So what you're doing with your daily one is you're cherry picking things off your week commencing goals, and that might also be on the big list, and tying them into your minimums. So saying on a given day, these are the things that I need to do today. Now, when I'm working from home in particular, I will break my day down on a piece of paper next to my desk by the hour. This is what I want to do between this hour and that hour. This is what I want to do between this one and that one. And again, always try and make it realistic. But if you make it too big, too insurmountable, you won't achieve it. So your actions list is big, week commencing, and on the day. And the time that you organise that week commencing list should be on a Friday evening, not on a Monday morning, not on a Sunday night. You want to try and get the weekend off if you can. So how do you break things down on your actions list as well? Or when emails come in, how are you dealing with those? The first thing to say is if you're sat at your laptop and emails come in, ping, 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 cursory look at them, but don't get involved with them. If they're not on your list right now to do, your actions, they must be ignored, because you'll find yourself trying to do several things all at once, not finishing everything all in one go. It'd be like half-assed measures. And this is where you've got to suss out as well in terms of your actions, urgent versus important, and they are two different things. If your boss rings you or sends you an email and says, I really need such and such doing, or if something comes through and you know that it's directly linked to a KPI, directly linked to, I don't know, in my case, say, monetary value or something, you might consider it urgent. So you've got to take a view on it. Urgent is one thing, important is another. But nearly all of my customers and clients, they'll send me emails through or phone me and they're, oh, this is urgent. And I'm like, well, it might be to you. You might think it is. Is it really urgent? And is it realistic for a client to phone or email me and expect me to effectively down tools and just get something done? No, not really. We tend to do that. It's in our nature. But the important thing here is you have to be in control of your time. If your working day and your working week is effectively dictated by your customers or your colleagues taking your time when they need it, you're not in control of your own time. And that just makes it even more stressful, because you'll have things that on your actions list to do that can suddenly start drifting into days and weeks even. So you are in control of your time, and you must be disciplined as much as possible with it. So urgent versus important. And this also ties in with must do versus nice to do. There are lots of things that come across my day-to-day working life where I'm like, if I did this, it's really for me, it's making my job easier perhaps, or better, or it's doing it for my client, but am I measured on it? No. Is it a KPI? No. Is it taking up time that I could be spending doing something that is a KPI or is important? Yes, it is. So you've got to decide the must-dos, they come first. The nice-to-dos, they come second, and it's your choice to fit those in. So you've got to be disciplined. So it's urgent versus important, must-do versus nice-to-do. And also, you absolutely must finish one task before you start another. I can see myself now at times, and in the past, I'm doing an action for somebody, responding to an email with something, and another one comes up and takes my attention, and I go onto that one. Now I've got two things open, and I'm delaying what I was doing, and I'm all a bit befuzzled. Ignore it. Remember, it's your time. You have to control your time, not the customers and not the, not your staff. To give them to literally give them the best service, and for you to do your best, you've got to run your own calendar, not let other people take the time away from it. And use resources around you. I'm fortunate I have resources in the office. We've got a good technical support team. If there's certain things that I know I've got a colleague who can help with, rather than spending more time doing it myself because I'm less good at it or I'm not the expert, send it to them. Okay? We can also give ourselves an extra 5 hours a week just by getting up 1 hour a day earlier. Now that might sound like a nightmare. I don't want to get up earlier. Who does? However, if you get up an hour earlier each day, you'll get to do some of these things. Maybe it's some of the prepping or researching for things. Maybe it's some of your admin tasks. And you'll feel so self-righteous. You feel much better. It's a proper sense of achievement. I got up early today. I didn't have to. I did it for me to make my life better and my job easier. And most people as well, in terms of their family life or partners and what have you, an hour earlier in the morning isn't really noticed. You might get a grumble from your wife, or perhaps disturbing her, but there would be much more begrudging of it if you added an hour to the evening. So add an hour to your day by getting up an hour earlier. And all these things in terms of your actions list and your minimums and the things that you need to do, make sure that on a Friday afternoon or early Friday evening, or whatever, end of the day, you've got your inbox down, you've got your actions for the following week and your week commencing goals sorted, you've ticked some things off, tidied up your actions list. So on Monday, when you get up an hour earlier than you need to, you'll be ready to go and feeling fresh. And then what I think is also really important is when you get to that point, you turn your laptop off on Friday, and you don't just turn it off and leave it on the desk. Turn it off and put it away somewhere. Put it in its bag in a cupboard under the bed. Same with the work phone. Remove that sense of working and try and just have the weekend off to recharge. Otherwise, you're just thinking about it. You see the laptop there, and you're tempted to go over and do something to it, and it's the weekend, and you need to recharge. So minimums, they achieve results, they reduce stress, and they also give you an audit trail of your activities. I'm not micromanaged, thank goodness. I work, Rockwell's brilliant, and my boss is amazing. But some people are. By doing your minimums and by populating your Outlook calendar with the things that you're going to do and when you're going to do them, and if you're keeping just a very basic spreadsheet of your activities, as I mentioned, big stuff, week commencing stuff, daily stuff, then you've got something to show if you need to. So I'm just going to hold this up here just for a little second again. I appreciate this is a very crude way of doing things, and if you got any sort of questions or comments, please put them in the comment section down below. I'll be happy to answer those questions or post some screenshots of my spreadsheet that I've got. So to recap, if you want to be more successful at your job, reduce stress and have better time outside of work, you need to demystify what your job is, do a quick flow chart. Once you've done that, you need to work out what your KPIs are and what you're measured on, what the really important things are. Then break that down into minimums, make them achievable, but minimum things you do each day, and put those things in your calendar as well so they pop up and you know you've got to do them. Have an actions list for the bigger picture, which you can work down into weekly goals and daily goals. And you must be disciplined on urgent versus important. You don't want people just nicking your time away when you're trying to get something done. You need to do it in the right way. So urgent versus important. Must do versus nice to do. Nice to do's, as they suggest, are usually easier as well. So it's easier to pick on 3 or 4 nice to do's instead of one big ugly must do. Must do's versus nice to do's. Finish one action before you start another. Don't get embroiled in multiple things because you just go nowhere. Use the resources around you as well. And get out of bed 1 hour earlier each day. Give yourself a bit more time. And then when you get to Friday evening, and then organise the following week so it's done, and put the laptop away. Right, sorry, it's a bit of a long video, but hopefully there's something in there that is useful. And like I say, please use the comment section below. Thanks very much.